Okay, so I've watched Daredevil Born Again episode 2, and it is titled Optics. Overall, this was a good episode. What's interesting is I've watched some different reviews on Daredevil Born Again, and it's a mixed bag. There's some people who feel like this is not really a continuation of the Netflix show. There's some that have some problems with some of Matt's struggles, and they think that there are things that they don't see enough. I'm willing to give this show the benefit of the doubt for several reasons. One reason is it's actually good, it's enjoyable. The second reason is I'm beginning to learn something about storytelling, just reading a bunch of different stories and seeing how a bunch of different people lay out their stories. No two writers are going to be the same. And I would imagine in television, right? You got writers, it's not really different. It's just you're making it for television. Some writers are going to take a different approach than others. There's going to be more of a slow walk into a bigger story. It's not going to be all in your face right away. And I think possibly that this is the reason they started out with the death of Foggy. I think that death was meant to be a shock to the system. In some ways, a way to let the audience know, hey, we are serious. We mean business. We aim to give you something that is a very solid show, and we're not pulling any punches. And I think it landed. I think they actually got that point across very well. Now, episode 2, titled Optics, I think did a very similar job, but in a different way. So they introduced a comic book character called the White Tiger. Now, admittedly, look, I wasn't a big reader of Daredevil, not really well versed on all the Daredevil history up until, I'd say a few days ago, maybe a few weeks ago, when I started actually digging into the character, mainly because of the Disney Plus show that was coming. I started figuring out some more things about the character. Some of it was stuff that I already knew, just got maybe some clarifying details. Because comic books, if you've been into comic books for any length of time, some people, their memories are like steel traps. They memorize everything. They know all of the stories. They can break down every character. And then you got normal people like me. I know enough about enough characters that if you say something about a backstory, it doesn't shock me, but I may not have the clarifying details. Anyway, introducing White Tiger, for me, says we're serious for this reason. You have to really dig into the weeds of Marvel to dig this character up. Like it's not one of those really familiar characters that you can just pull up and everybody's like, oh yeah, the White Tiger. No. To me, this is a nod to the fans saying, hey, we have dug deep into the comic book lore of Marvel, and we're pulling out this character that most people have never heard of. Now, this character, as far as I know, let me see when the White Tiger was first introduced by Marvel, because I believe it was in the 70s. When was the White Tiger introduced by Marvel? I'm pretty sure it was in the 70s. Let's see. The White Tiger, 1975. Now, here's the thing I found out. Well, I mean, I already knew this, being around, not in 1975. I was born some years later, 1979. I know, date myself. But this was the big Kung Fu era, like really big on Kung Fu. And that's what this character was born out of. And to my shock, like I said, this wasn't a character I knew much about. They actually, you know how sometimes Marvel has this idea in their head that if they change the character, change the backstory, change the character's name, do all of these things, that nobody will care, but people do care. And to my shock, they actually kept It seems like thus far, just with the little bit we've been shown, they've kept the bulk of this story correct, even down to his name, Hector Ayala, a Puerto Rican dude, and the amulet and all of that. It seems like all of this is accurate to the comic book. When I was looking into this, I thought to myself, okay, all right, this is what can I say about this? I like it. So here's the brief rundown. So Matt Murdock takes on the case of Hector Ayala. He happens to be in a police precinct, and he hears them tuning this guy up. They're trying to get a confession out of him. What happened is, so he's been moonlighting as this vigilante. He gets powers from his amulet, just to let you know that. But he's been moonlighting as this vigilante in the absence of the Daredevil. So he's in civilian clothes, getting on a train. He sees these dudes attacking, attacking someone. And so he's like, hey, what are you doing? You can't do this. Now, at no point do these guys say anything about who they are. So he's tussling with them on the platform. And one of them, as he's tussling, he kind of like, I can't remember if he pushes him off or swings at him, and the dude goes flying, and there's a train coming by, and the train hits him. Well, then then he finds out that these dudes are police officers. Well, why didn't they announce that in the first place? Now, you might say, well, maybe they were undercover, blah, blah, blah. That could have been the case, but the dude who they were fighting with, he had already ran. So if they were undercover, if that was their perfect opportunity to say, hey, we're undercover police officers. We were conducting an investigation, and here's what was going on. They didn't do that. So now they have it out for this Hector Ayala. They want him dead. You kill a cop in New York City, you're not going to get much mercy from anybody. Murdock takes the case. Of course, everybody in his firm is like, oh my goodness, what do you mean you're taking this case? This guy killed a cop. There's no, we're not getting anywhere with this. But Murdock believes he's innocent. Like I said, he overheard them pretty much beating the brakes off of him in the interrogation room. He has a talk with them. At some point in the episode, Matt, he's listening to his heartbeat as he's talking to him. So he knows he's hiding something, but he doesn't know what. And he finds out, I can't remember the gentleman's name who retired in the first episode. I should have wrote down some notes on this. But anyway, he is his private investigator at his firm. So he takes him and his other partner, and they go to the wife's house. Hector Ayala's married. Goes to the wife's house to ask her some questions, get a suit. But really, the private investigator wants to see what's going on. He investigates, goes under the bed, figures out, holy snaps, this dude is the White Tiger. Matt Murdock finds that out, goes to visit this dude. I'm pretty sure he was on Rikers. Goes to visit him, and he's like, why didn't you tell me this? Well, for obvious reasons, he didn't tell him. Anyway, that whole thing pans out. The episode moves into them trying to find this guy that the cops were fighting with on the platform. But Matt, of course, being perceptive, a lot of things happen. He finds out that the cops are actually sending someone to this dude's house to kill him. And he finds that out as he's tracking the dude down, goes up to the dude's house, knocks on a door. He enters. They have a conversation. Matt lets him know, hey, look, they're going to kill you. So what you want to do right now is you want to get out of here. I've called a guy, his private investigator. He's going to meet you down at this park. He leaves through the fire escape. The police officers come upstairs. They knock on a door. They find out Matt is in there. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And so they're going to rough him up. And they were going to kill him. They were going to kill Matt Murdock in this apartment. And he's trying to hold back. And finally he couldn't. They were getting ready to pull the trigger. And he beat the brakes off these dudes. I was like, man. And you could tell he was conflicted because he doesn't want... You can tell that Matt is struggling right now. Like he is trying to hide that part of himself. The Daredevil really is the real him, and Matt Murdock is the mask. And a lot of people have said this. This is nothing new. But he is really trying to suppress Daredevil. He is really trying not to let that part of him come out. And you can tell he screamed after he beat the brakes off these two police officers, really mad. And so this is what I will say. While this is not okay, so some people said this is not, it doesn't follow the darkness of the Netflix series. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. And so I think in many ways it does. And I also think it's too early to make that proclamation, but not too early to say it does. And I know that sounds hypocritical, but bear with me on this. If you know anything about Disney and the type of shows that they put out, if you could go back, let's say 15 years, and then sit down and watch these 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, you would not think this was put out by Disney. In my humble opinion, there's no way you're going to think, oh, Disney put this out. So I think there is not a perfect execution, but definitely an attempt to maintain the feeling and the theme from the original Netflix series. And I think they did a good job with everything considered. I heard about all of the reshoots, and I mean, if all of that stuff is true, what they've put into this show after the reshoots and what they've produced, man, I gotta say, I think this is overall really good. This is what I think. If you enjoyed the Netflix series, you will probably enjoy this one. Now, is it possible that you might watch it and come off with a different opinion than I just gave? Yeah, obviously, right? My opinion is not a perfect opinion without flaw, but I think I'm right on this. I really believe I'm right on this. And so one of 2 things is going to happen. This series is going to get more gritty as time goes on, and it's going to double down on the grittiness and get even more violent. And people are going to come around and go, oh, I misjudged. I judged too early. This is exactly like the Netflix series. Or it's going to flop. I don't think it's going to flop. I really don't think it is. Is it? Of course it's possible. I just don't think it's going in that direction. Also, you have the twist of Wilson Fisk is planning something. He is up to something. Like, there is something so nefarious going on. And of course, those of you who are very familiar with Daredevil comics, if you're familiar with what's getting ready to happen, say something in the comments. I don't mind spoilers. But Wilson Fisk is definitely up to something. So the young lady, I say young lady, they're in their probably mid to late 40s, that Matt Murdock is seeing right now as a psychiatrist. Well, this psychiatrist happens to now be seeing, by request from Wilson Fisk assistant, she is now seeing Wilson Fisk and his wife, helping them. This is not a coincidence. This is by no means is this a coincidence. And I don't believe that Wilson Fisk and his wife are actually having problems. I think they're purposely in the public eye creating a little bit of separation between the two. It's like a sleight of hand that's being pulled. So yeah, that part of it, for me, that's intriguing. And there's also some kind of secret organization going on within the police force. That's another thing. One of the police officers had a tattoo that kind of bore that out. Yo, I'm going to give this a chance. I'm not going to jump the gun and say, yeah, they're going in this direction or that direction. And people, look, legitimate objections, legitimate concerns for the show from the reviews that I've heard. But I think they're going to be wrong. And look, if I'm wrong, I will come back and say I was wrong, and I will offer no other comment on the show. As I've said before, early on, I covered some things I didn't like, but I don't have the energy for that. I just want to cover things that I like and enjoy, and hopefully you like and enjoy some of these same things, and I get to give you kind of a preview ahead of time to maybe gauge whether you want to take your time to watch this thing or not. I think Daredevil Born Again Episode 2 is worth your time.